started earlier about Moses. And if you look at the life of Moses and you were to draw a graph, ups, downs, ups, downs, ups, downs, in Moses' life and what Moses went through. God took a young Jewish boy, put him in the house of Pharaoh, raised him up as a prince. He's way up here. Then he kills an Egyptian, flees for his life, goes out and becomes a shepherd. Shepherds are considered to be the lowest of the low. So now he's down here. Then God calls him up to the mountain. And he goes and looks at the bush, and God speaks to him. Now he's on another high. Then he goes to Pharaoh. And think of all the things that Moses had to do with Pharaoh and how many times he was rejected by Pharaoh before Pharaoh finally let the children go. And in that moment we all remember where he parts the seas. But it wasn't him parting the seas, it was God parting the seas. And then they get to the other side. And then time after time, the children of Israel turn against Moses over and over again. And how Moses handles those things. God loved Moses. He said when he was going to destroy Jerusalem, he says, if Elijah and Moses were the only two, and they stood before me, that'd be the only two saved in this whole city. It'd be the only two. God loved Moses. God has a special place for Moses. But Moses was a man. And the people kept forgetting that. They kept looking at Moses as Moses was God. Moses kept telling them, I'm not God. I'm here to represent God. But you know, every now and then in our lives, there's going to come that Moses moment where pride slips in and we do things. Our God, we're starting a new series. It's called God Is. And the first God is, we're going to go to the next slide for me there. God is holy. Our God is a holy God. He demands that we show His holiness and that we don't give His holiness to other people. It belongs to Him. If you want to turn in your Bibles, we're going to be reading from Numbers 20, 1 through 13. Then the children of Israel, the whole congregation, come into the wilderness of Zin. So let me set the picture. Okay? They failed already. Now they're in the wilderness of Zin. They have come up out of the waters where God separated, and now they're headed to the holy mountain, and they're in the wilderness of Zin. It's in the first month, and the people stay in Kadesh. And Miriam died there and was buried there. Miriam, who at all times supported her husband Aaron the priest. Miriam became very important. All the women looked up to Miriam. All the women would go to her with things. Peggy feels that sometimes when people come to her over, I don't know what it is, but Miriam was a person like Peggy. People are just drawn to bring Peggy, and Peggy is that person that listens really good. That's who Miriam was. Miriam wasn't perfect. At one time, she did something that made God mad, and He made her a leper and put her outside the camp for so many days. But she was one of those people that served God and supported her husband, Aaron the priest. She's passed away, and the people love Miriam. So they're going to stay, and they're going to mourn for her. Now there was no water for the congregation, so they gathered together against Moses and Aaron. This happens over and over again, where the people want to blame Moses when things don't happen the way they want it to happen. And they complain. But who are they complaining to? Are they complaining to Moses? No, they're complaining against God. But you know something? Everybody has to have a target. Okay? We have to blame somebody, it seems like, as humans. We got to have that one person that we can blame when something goes wrong. Here in the U.S., it's the president, it's the senator, it's the mayor, somebody. It's their fault, and we want to be able to point a finger at them. In this case, they're pointing the finger at Moses and saying, Moses, it's your fault that we're in this place. And the people contended with Moses and spoke, saying, if only we had died when our brethren died before the Lord. They're wishing for death. They feel their situation is so uncontrollable that it would have been better if they had just gone ahead and died. Why have you brought up the assembly of the Lord into this wilderness, that we and our animals should die here? And why have you made us come up out of Egypt and bring us to this evil place? It is not a place of grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, nor is there any water to drink. You hear their complaint? It ain't what you promised. You promised us a land of milk and honey, and it ain't here. Well, guess what? They tried to take them to the land of milk and honey, and what did they do? They said, oh, we can't do this. This is too much for us. There's giants in the land. Okay? They want to complain, and they got to find somebody to complain to. And in this case, they're complaining to Moses, because Moses was the one that led them out of Egypt. So what does Moses do? Does Moses turn around and rail on them? Does he ask God to strike them with lightning? No. So Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and they fell on their faces. What do you want me to do, God? Isn't that what we're supposed to do when things are bad? We're supposed to fall before God and say, hey, help. I can't handle this. This is over my head. What am I supposed to do here? These people are wanting to kill me. You know, I'm at my wit's end. Have you ever heard somebody say that? They're at their wit's end. They don't know what to do. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the rod, you and your brother Aaron, and gather the congregation together, and speak. We'll say it again. And speak to the rock before their eyes, and it will yield water. Okay? Here God says, just go up there, take that same rod that you held over the water, and the water separated, and you walked across on dry land, take that same rock and go up and just look at the rock and speak to it, and it's going to give water for the congregation. Who's going to get glory for that? God. Now hear what happened. Thus you shall bring water for them out of the rock, and give to drink the congregation and their animals. So he does what he's told. He grabs the stick, and he goes up on the mountain, and he goes to where the rock that God had told him to go to. Then Moses took the rod from before the Lord as he commanded him, and Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly before the rock and said to them, hear now, you rebels. You hear the change in the tone? Now he wants to chastise them a little bit. You're rebelling against the Lord, you rebels. Must we, him and Aaron. Did he say, and God? No, he said, and we. Must we bring water for you out of this rock? Now who's going to get the glory when it happens? Moses. You see, that's what God did not want. God did not want Moses to end up at the end being the one that all the people gave glory to, and they built a statue to, and they made monuments to, and they worshiped to, and they made offerings to. That's not what he wanted. Moses was a servant of God. That's what he was supposed to be. But Moses has turned around a little bit. And now he's taken the power of God on himself. God's given the ability to do it. What did he have to do? Just speak to the rock. Then Moses lifted up his hand and he struck the rock twice with the rod. And water came out abundantly, and the congregation and their animals drank. So did the people get what they wanted? Oh, absolutely. They wanted water, here's your water. But did they get it in the right way? Who got the glory for this incident? Moses did. That's not what God was after here. Once again, God was showing his glory. Glory is to be given to God. When God does some miraculous thing in your life or my life, we are supposed to give the glory to God. And when we don't, we're being a Moses at that moment in his life. To say, I had a Moses moment, usually that's a good thing. In this case, it's not so good. Then the Lord spoke to Moses. Okay, now it's time to pay the piper, right? Now God speaks to Moses. Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, because you did not believe me, to hallow me before the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them. So what is the price for disobedience? What is the price for taking on the glory of the Lord for yourself instead of giving it to God? For them, all this effort was to get the children of Israel into the land of Israel. And now they're not going to get to do it. Now he's got to hand it off to somebody else. He's got to give it to Joshua. And now Joshua will be the one to get to do that. And Moses won't get to go into the land. This was the water of Meribah, because the children of Israel contended with the Lord, and he was hallowed among them. God did get the glory. Moses tried to take it on himself, and it cost him. This is a lesson for us. This is a direct lesson for us. Little things are going to happen in your life. Do you thank God for it? Do you give him the praise for it? Do you tell other people, so what God did here? Or do you use the I word? Look what I did. Look what we did. Okay? Miracles happen all the time. They happen all around us. They happen in the medical world when it's a person who's diagnosed with something and miraculously God heals them, and I see that over and over again. Who gets the glory? Is it the doctor? Is it that oncologist who came up with a miraculous treatment plan, and all of a sudden this person? Who's getting the glory in this? And that's what it's all about. Are you giving God his due? Are you taking on the glory of God? I've been guilty of that. I've been guilty of that. Something great happens. It's like, wow, I did this and look what happened. Yeah, I may have been there. Moses was there. But God did the miraculous whatever it was. Moses was supposed to speak to a rock. Just speak. That's all he had to do. God had already prepared the rock, probably 1,000,000 years before Moses was ever born. Before the beginning of time, he probably prepared this whole scene to happen. So he could show the people his glory, the Shekinah glory. And what did Moses do? You want to call it stealing? Stealing somebody's thunder? Okay? Well, you know, when you do that to somebody else, they may get upset with you. When you do it with God, there is a price to pay. There's a price to pay. And we're not supposed to do that. Give God the glory in all things. I'm going to tell you something. I didn't get halfway through this sermon. I didn't get halfway through it. But we're not going to stay here for another 45 minutes. We're going to stop right here because you know what? I don't think it needs any more. This shows everything. God is a holy God. Give God the glory for the things that He does. Recognize when things happen. Recognize when you get a blessing in your life. Recognize it. And then give God the glory for it. And tell others, look what God did for me. Look what God did for my son, my daughter, my grandchild, my friend. Give God the glory. Don't take God's glory. It didn't work out so good for Moses. Probably won't work out good for us either. Father, thank you. This was a short message, I know, but it's such a powerful one. It cost Moses the ability to go into the land of Israel. He ended up going on a mountain and dying, and nobody even knows where his burial place is. There are no monuments. There are no statues. All the wonderful things that he did, that God did with him, God did through him and used him for. And God showed His glory through. He lost because of a moment of pride and anger. We have to guard ourselves. We have to make sure that we're giving God our glory. We don't need to take it on ourselves. It isn't ours. We didn't earn it. All things are done through God. And we need to make sure that we keep Him as the holy God. And that we're not the Holy One. He is. As we go into our family time, if there's something going on in your life, if you have recognized this in yourself somewhere, and you haven't been giving God the glory for all the wonderful things that He does in your life, now's the time to talk to Him. Now's the time to clean that up. If there's other things going on, you need to speak to me. Come up here to the altar and pray at the altar, or see me after church. I'm right here for you. That's what God's got me doing. And I give Him glory for it. So spend time with God at this time. Let Him hear from your heart. Let Him touch your lives. In Jesus Christ's name. I want to thank you for joining us here at Frontenac Baptist Church in Cocoa, Florida. I want you to notice I have a yellow shirt on today. We're honoring our relief workers that are in South Florida right now, that are down there and helping people and feeding people and doing those little things that they can't do for themselves right now. Giving them and God the honor and the glory for what's happening down there and how people's lives are being touched. Thank you once again for joining us here at Frontenac Baptist Church in Cocoa, Florida.